My name is Giovanni Sorrenti. I'm the Janet Service Desk Manager for Janet in the UK. I've been in the position for about 7 years, but previously worked with Network, so I've been familiar with Janet for about 14 years. Having not been to one of these before, I wasn't quite sure how to set this presentation up, so apologies if it's too general or simplistic. And I'm aware that we're a bit short for time, so if I'm overly brief, again, apologies. We've rolled out this past coming 12 months, Janet 6. This is around 6,000 kilometres of dark fibre. There are 79 points of presence. The core capacity is any number of line cards we have to 100 gig. The regional network connections are all at 10 gig with the facility to, I think each has 2 with the facility to give them more as required, and they can range from 10 to 60 gig. There are 7 Janet core points of presence. These we lease off of various organisations around the country. Telehouse, Telecity, Leeds, Colocate. There are 4 SSET core POPs. These are in Bristol, Birmingham, Nottingham, Glasgow. There are 8 transmission POPs, 21 ILI sites. They're all over the network. And then there are 39 regional network entry points at present. These are mainly university located. We use the Sienna 6500 platform for the layer 2 equipment. For the IP equipment, we're using Janet T1600s and T4000s, and for the Lightpath Juniper MX 960s. The services offered over the top of this network range from web filtering, web hosting. We offer Janet service certificates, which is a slightly separate service, primary, secondary name server service, and video conferencing. The primary, secondary name server service, web filtering, web hosting are free to Janet primary connected customers. Video conferencing is also free, but we are able to charge that out to people that aren't connected to Janet. Janet service certificates are chargeable to all. So the monitor network, we use SNPs and HP OpenView. These poll every interface on the network within a 10-minute period. We've got a custom tool called NetSite, which provides them with data from their traffic levels to the ping time returns. And for the layer 2 devices, we're using Sienna 1 Control. We have an in-house project at the moment to create a new OSS, which will hopefully gather layer 2 and layer 3 alarms to make it easier for us to be able to diagnose faults in the future. Type of users on the network are higher education, further education, research councils, and local authorities. Namely, local authorities provide internet connectivity to secondary schools through their connection. And the people we deal with are mainly the IT managers and their support teams. We have a service description which is on our website as follows. I won't bore you with exactly what it says. Basically, we put all of our service descriptions up on our web pages. They describe our hours of service and also our target availability, which, as you can see from there, is 99.7% availability of the network over a 12-month period. In order to communicate with customers, we use community.ja.net. This is a user account-based website where we try and encourage people from around the community to get involved, give us positive and negative feedback, and also an opportunity for us to put information out in one place where people can come and gather it rather than us having to disseminate throughout the network. As you can see, there's ongoing upgrades and conversations regarding database service and activity. Users must be registered. We use email, telephone. We prefer to use telephone as a desk. We feel that being able to speak to people, both to the customers and to the providers, enables us to offer a better standard of service. And of course, trouble tickets, which we use mailing lists to send out to different parts of the network. These are all granulated down to individuals' points of presence, so people shouldn't be receiving trouble tickets for anything other than maintenances or issues that are affecting them. As it shows, it requires a generic email address and these references by points of presence. We've also got a central database and a customer relationship manager database whereby we can feed back information to our customer engagement team so that when they go to visit, they have the latest information that we've got regarding any issues regarding science. The NOC structure itself is distributed between 3 locations, London, Manchester and Oxford. The NOC is split into 5 groups. Of those 5 groups, there are 3 which are probably quite standard: Janitor Service Desk, the Network Engineering Group and the Core Architecture Team, but also included in there is the Connections Management Group and the Network Services Group. We felt that this was a good idea in order to enable operational influence on circuits that are coming into fruition and also projects that are coming into fruition. Of the 3, there's Janitor Service Desk, which I'm the manager. This is centralised at the Lumen House head office. It does first-line monitoring and fault investigation. We own the fault SLA. We also look after POP access management, and we work Monday to Friday, 7 till midnight, on weekends, 9 to 7 on call. The reason we do 9 to 7 on call at weekends is because we have FE colleges that are open at that time, and we want to be able to offer them the same standard of service as we would do during a weekday. The Network Engineering Group is distributed between Manchester and London NOCs. Their second line monitoring and fault investigation. They run our managed router service, which is a service that allows organisations to have a Janet router on site and for that to be managed by ourselves rather than have their own IT effort. They look after all new connection requests into the Janet network. They do IP management, and they work 8 till 6 Monday to Friday with 1 engineer on call at all other times. And finally, the Core Architecture Team. They're centralised in London only. They do third level fault investigation. They get involved in all procurements and act as lead engineers in procurements. They also act as lead engineers in our major projects. They do all our core layer 2 provision. And again, they work 8 till 6 Monday to Friday with an engineer on call at all other times. How we talk to each other. We have telephone hunt groups, so although we want to call each other individually, us being based in different locations makes it difficult to know who's there, so what we've got is a hunt group where we can dial a number and it will ring round everybody within that group to ensure that someone picks up the calls at all times. We have group email addresses. We use the ticket diaries from our central database to update. If this is assigned to an individual engineer, once the ticket's been updated and the diary's been updated in the ticket, this will send an email notification out to the engineer with details of what information's been put into that ticket. And again, the community pages, which we're trying to really push to be used by Janet staff as well as by the community itself. And finally, video conferencing for when it's difficult to all sit in the room. We're able to sit there and at least partially act as if we're in the same room. With our providers and customers, again, the main thing we wish to use is the telephone. We find that this is the best way for us to get across to our customers any particular issues that we've got with the network. It also means that when dealing with the providers, we can ask questions there and then, which can allow us to be able to provide a better level of information for our customers at a later date. We use community pages for the customers. Generic email addresses are used for dealing with providers. They don't like to give out individual addresses, they prefer that we use generic ones. And then portals for suppliers only, although we try not to use portals because we feel that this slows down the investigation of the fault and doesn't allow us to have an influence on our suppliers to the extent that we would if we were picking up the phone and speaking to them. And then finally, the trouble ticket system again. How we talk to each other, again, through telephone and email, ticket diaries, video conferencing, and we also use an instant messaging system. We found that the instant messaging works very well with the core architecture team. If we send these guys emails, they tend to spend half the time correcting our grammar. If we send them an instant message, they're perfectly happy to put emoticons on and all sorts of things. It's very strange. But we find instant messaging is the best way for us to have a one-off conversation rather than using the email. And then finally, documentation. Network and equipment infrastructure is documented for a central database, one control for the layer 2 devices, and all circuits and equipment is also kept on Janet wiki pages, which is kept up to date by the core architecture team. And we run postscripts on a weekly basis to ensure that we're capturing any new equipment that's been added or taken off of the network. And then finally, our best practice documents, of which I haven't brought any with me, I'm afraid, are tracked through our quality system, which is ISO 9000 2008. And that's it. Are there any questions? Too quick? No? It's okay.
Maybe you mentioned that I didn't get it, but what's the trouble ticket?
A trouble ticket is a mailing device which we use It's a set format that allows people to be aware of any maintenances that are coming up or any issues that have affected the entire network and will affect their sites. So I think Jay don't use trouble tickets as well. I don't know if you call it something else.
Sorry, that's me.
Yeah. Do you call them trouble tickets also?
We use something by render control.
Yeah.
DMC.
I just wonder if there's a more generic term that I should be using rather than trouble ticket.
So what software do you use?
Yeah. The software, we've got our own, we've got a bespoke central database which has its own ticketing system attached to it that generates its trouble tickets.
So you are looking to replace that?
We are currently looking to replace that, that's correct. Yeah. We're hoping that's going to be an off-the-shelf product rather than something that we build again ourselves. Building our own database was a great idea, and at the time it allowed us to include all of the wish lists of every part of the organisation. But of course, as the organisation has grown and we've taken on more services and the landscape of the network's changed, we've had to bolt extra things onto that database that's now made it very cumbersome. And so I think going forward we're going to try and look for something that just gives us the ability to record all the information, and then we'll get something off the shelf to maybe manipulate that in ways that we need in the future. Okay.
Who is allowed to take part in the community that you mentioned?
Anybody's allowed to take part in the community database. Anybody's allowed to take part in the community database as long as they've got a user account. So if you want to speak to me afterwards, I'll point you in the right direction.
And is that because that sounds very interesting. I mean, are there, you said conversations and things, so is that essentially a set of web forums, or how does that represent itself, I suppose, as the...
From my use of it, it's pretty much you go on to, I don't know specific words for this, so excuse me for not being technical about it, but you log on, there's a series of conversations that are on the front page, you click into it and you're allowed to update the page there and then with your conversations.
It's a Drupal-based site with
thank you very much.
Blogs and sort of forums and various libraries and information.
Thanks, James.
And is there any kind of single sign-on stuff going on there?
You can sign in using federated identity, or you can create your own account on the system. If you create your own account on the system, you have less access to various things. So if you're authenticated as a member of a university with appropriate access, you can use various apps within the site to order things like certificate service. You can access that through the site store.
Our portal software only, at the moment, it's only accessible via federated access.
Yes, this gives you a range of options, but if you don't use federated access, then you get less access.
Right.
Do you use only one central phone number for your service desk, or do you allow customers to line support directly?
Well, we've got an 0300 number which we're able to point towards any land-based number, so the number's always up and available. Even if we have issues with our own NOC, we can transfer that through to the London NOC, so that call's always answered.
So you don't have to filter all your customers through first line first?
No, all inquiries come through to 2212 number, which is a general help desk number for Janet herself.
What level of diagnosis do your first line guys get involved in?
We have the ability to ping through the HTTP OpenView network, so if we see something go down, our first action is to re-ping that, try and get that interface back up, and then we have access to the core POP routers and the edge routers to just read only, really, to look at the interfaces, look at alarms, maybe look at the show logs, see if there's anything in there, try and get as much information as possible to put forward to the provider. Our issues we find as a desk is that we lose time with our providers constantly, where they come back to us and ask us for more things. They're constantly pressing the park button. So we try and have as much information and documentation as possible for them at the very beginning of the fault, so that we can push and make sure escalations are done on time and they meet that SLA. Because for us, failure to meet the SLA means that as an organisation we're not adding value to to what a customer would probably receive from their provider anyway. And what we can offer is the fact that we have ongoing communication with the providers. We speak to them on a daily basis, we go to visit them, and we understand the tricks of what they try to do in terms of stalling on meeting their SLA.
And roughly what percentage of errors on an issue would you say you're able to resolve rather than escalate to second?
I'd say about 90% of all our faults are resolved by ourselves. Given the performance of the equipment these days compared to when I first started, most problems that we see across our network now are fibre-based. And unfortunately, second or third level engineers aren't going to be able to help us in that side.
Just in relation to the schools and the local authorities, are those, I presume, I guess, I may be wrong, the individual schools are calling someone other than yourselves?
That's right. So we provide connectivity to a consortium who then provide network capabilities to the individual schools. But yeah, no, there's that defined line between us and the schools.
I think you guys provide some connectivity to local authorities.
That's correct, yeah.
Like the agencies as well. Is that correct? So, and are they talking to you? Just because I find that's a very different kind of customer to the universities versus a government agency or local authority. Yeah,
we speak to some of the agencies as well. In general, most of the people we speak to are IT managers. So they're aware of the technicalities of what we do. What is important for us as a desk is to understand what sits beyond those managers. So with universities, we know that they get pressure from heads of departments and other parts of the university to ensure that the connectivity is there. With FE colleges, that pressure isn't so much because it's a smaller environment. And with the agencies, it's more about, well, as an anecdote, what I would say is when I first joined, you could turn around to an organisation and say, your 2 meg link is down and it might take 3 days to get that fixed. Now what we're finding is after 10 minutes of 100 meg link being down, we're being asked, well, what's the compensation for that link being down for this period of time? So the roles change slightly, but we have to adapt to it. We have to understand these guys are under immense pressure. And so what we can do is add value by taking some of that pressure off of them and giving them timely and accurate information.
I find that with the local government customers, the biggest problem is finding one person within the local authority who is willing to take responsibility for the giant connection.
Yeah.
They will say, because most of the local authorities it's used by adults and community learning.
Yeah.
Trying to convince the central IT people that they're responsible for the IT of the community learning college down the road is a struggle. And
on the flip side of that, we have ACLs that have commissioned out their IT structure to a third party, and it's very usual for any instance to take place within that ACL for the first thing to be said was, well, this is a Janet problem. So we're often spending time having to explain away faults that aren't there, which can be quite time consuming. Okay. Thank you very much. Cheers.